What happens when a Hollywood heartthrob walks onto a daytime talk show expecting laughter and light applause, and instead finds himself slowly cornered, question by question, until instinct takes over and the smile turns into armor? Before we dive in, if you love cinematic celebrity moments like this, raw, uncomfortable, and impossible to look away from, make sure you subscribe to Stage View right now. Hit that like button and drop a comment so you don't miss what comes next. The lights of the View studio glow warm and familiar, the kind of lighting designed to make everything feel safe. Inviting. Friendly. Channing Tatum steps out to applause, that practiced grin already in place, shoulders relaxed, waving to the audience like a man who has done this dance 100 times. He looks comfortable, confident, almost too comfortable. Sunny Hostin watches him from across the table, her expression polite but unreadable. She smiles, but her eyes don't quite follow. They're focused inward, waiting, calculating. The audience cheers die down. The host introductions roll smoothly. Channing sits, crossing one ankle over the other, leaning back slightly, signaling ease. He jokes about the early call time, about coffee not being strong enough. Laughter ripples across the studio. Whoopi chuckles. Joy nods along. Everything feels normal. Too normal. Sunny tilts her head just a fraction and leans toward her microphone. Her voice is calm, even warm, but there's an edge beneath it. Channing, she says, you've talked a lot recently about masculinity, about how men are being perceived in Hollywood right now. Channing nods quickly. Yeah. I think it's an important conversation. The audience murmurs approvingly. This is safe territory. Or so it seems. Sunny continues. But some people felt your comments were defensive. Almost like you were pushing back against accountability. There it is. The first hairline crack. Channing's smile tightens, not gone, just adjusted. I don't think accountability is a bad thing, he says, choosing each word carefully. I think growth is important. Sunny doesn't interrupt. That's what makes it dangerous. She lets the silence stretch just long enough for discomfort to seep in. Then why? She asks softly. Do you think so many people felt dismissed by what you said? The studio grows quieter. The laughter fades. Channing shifts in his chair, uncrossing his legs. His hands come together, fingers interlaced, knuckles whitening just a bit. I don't think I dismissed anyone, he replies. I think people maybe projected things onto my words. That's when Sunny raises her eyebrows, not dramatically, just enough. Projected, she repeats. Or reacted? A ripple of tension moves through the audience. You can feel it. That collective inhale when everyone realizes this is no longer a casual interview. This is something else. Channing leans forward now. His tone stays calm, but there's steel under it. Look, I've spent my entire career trying to be respectful, to listen. But there's also a moment where you have to defend your intent. Defend. Sunny nods slowly. Defend yourself from whom? The word hangs there like smoke. Channing hesitates. It's brief, half a second, but cameras catch everything. From narratives, he says. From people who don't actually know me. The audience reacts audibly now. A few murmurs. Someone claps uncertainly, then stops. Sunny doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. But when public figures speak, she says, the impact matters just as much as intent. Channing exhales sharply through his nose. His jaw tightens. Sure, but are we saying intent doesn't matter at all anymore? That's when Whoopi shifts in her chair, sensing the temperature rise. All right, she interjects lightly, trying to ease the moment. Let's keep it moving. But Sunny isn't done. Not even close. Channing, she says, turning back to him. Do you feel men in Hollywood are being unfairly targeted right now? There it is. The question everyone knew was coming. But not this soon, not this directly. The studio goes silent. Channing looks out at the audience for a split second, then back at Sunny. His shoulders square. I think, he says slowly, there's a lot of fear. On all sides. Sunny's eyes lock onto his. Fear of what? Fear of being misunderstood, he replies. Fear of saying the wrong thing and being labeled forever. Sunny leans back slightly, crossing her arms. But women have lived with that fear for decades. A sharp intake of breath echoes through the crowd. Channing's expression changes. Not anger, not yet. Something closer to frustration. I'm not denying that, he says. I'm just saying two things can be true at the same time. Sunny tilts her head again. Can they? The exchange feels less like an interview now and more like a courtroom cross-examination. Every word weighed. Every pause deliberate. Channing's voice lowers. I feel like I'm being asked to apologize for existing in a certain space. The audience reacts immediately. Some gasp. Some nod. A few clap louder this time. Sunny's expression hardens just slightly. No one is asking you to apologize for existing, she says. They're asking you to listen. I am listening, Channing says, more forcefully than before. Sunny counters instantly. Listening doesn't usually sound this defensive. The word hits him like a slap. Defensive. Channing leans back, runs a hand over his face, then drops it to the table. His smile is completely gone now. I'm human, he says. And humans get defensive when they feel attacked. Sunny doesn't blink. So you feel attacked? Another pause. This one longer. Yes, Channing admits. The honesty lands hard. The audience erupts, some applause, some stunned silence. Sunny nods once. Thank you for saying that. But gratitude doesn't soften what comes next. Who do you feel is attacking you? She asks. Channing's lips part, then close again. He looks toward Whoopi, toward the other hosts, as if searching for backup. None comes. I think, he says carefully, there's a cultural moment happening where men are assumed guilty before conversation even starts. The studio buzzes. This is no longer just about Channing Tatum. This is about everything. Sunny's voice remains steady. And women, she replies, have been assumed silent for generations. Channing's eyes flash. I'm not arguing that. But you are centering yourself, Sunny says. That's the turning point. You can feel it shift. Channing straightens, shoulders tense, posture defensive in a way that's impossible to hide. I was asked a question, he says. I'm answering it honestly. And honesty can still be challenged, Sunny replies. A beat. Then Channing says it, the line that changes everything. At what point, he asks, is it okay for men to speak without being told they're wrong just for opening their mouths? The audience explodes. Applause, gasps, scattered boos. Producers glance nervously off camera. Whoopi raises her hands, trying to regain control. Sunny doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. When that speech doesn't silence others, she says quietly. The silence that follows is heavy. Thick. Almost unbearable. Channing looks down at the table. When he looks back up, something in him has shifted. The movie star polish is gone. This is a man who feels cornered, and is no longer pretending otherwise. And this is only the beginning. The silence doesn't break on its own. It has to be pushed aside, forced to make room for breath again. You can almost hear it creak as Channing shifts in his seat, the chair legs scraping softly against the studio floor. Cameras zoom in, not aggressively, but with intent. This is the moment they know they'll replay. Channing clears his throat. His voice, when it comes, is quieter now. Not softer, just more controlled. I'm not trying to silence anyone, he says. That's never been who I am. Sunny studies him, her expression thoughtful but firm. Intent again, she says. We keep coming back to that. Channing nods. Because it matters. But does it matter more than impact? She asks. The question lands like a weight on his chest. He exhales long and slow, as if buying time. I think, he says, we've reached a point where people are afraid to speak honestly. And fear doesn't lead to growth. A murmur ripples through the audience. Some nod. Others fold their arms tighter. Joy leans forward, trying to soften the edge. Channing, do you feel like you're being misunderstood right now? He looks grateful for the lifeline. Yeah, he admits. A lot. Sunny doesn't interrupt, but her gaze never leaves him. She lets him talk. I came here to have a conversation, Channing continues. Not to be put on trial. That word, trial, changes the temperature again. Sunny straightens slightly. This isn't a trial, she says. This is accountability. Channing's jaw tightens. Accountability for what, exactly? For the influence you carry, Sunny replies. For the way your words echo beyond you. He lets out a short laugh, not amused, not cruel. Defensive. So now having influence means never pushing back. Sunny responds instantly. It means understanding when pushing back looks like resistance to change. The audience reacts audibly this time. A woman in the front row whispers, wow, under her breath, mic'd more clearly than she realizes. Channing rubs his palms together. His leg bounces under the table. These are not rehearsed gestures. This is stress bleeding through the cracks. I've spent years trying to evolve, he says. Trying to learn. But every time a man says that out loud, it's treated with suspicion. Sunny tilts her head. Or with scrutiny. Same thing, he fires back. The tension spikes. Whoopi shifts again, eyes darting between them. All right, let's take a breath here, she says. But the moment has momentum now. It doesn't want to slow down. Sunny turns fully toward Channing. You said you feel attacked, she reminds him. Can you understand why women might feel attacked by the systems that protected men for decades? Channing doesn't answer right away. When he does, his voice is measured. Yes, I can. And I do. Then why does this feel so personal to you? Sunny asks. He hesitates. Then something in him gives. Because it feels like no matter what I say, he admits, it's never enough. The audience quiets again. There's vulnerability in that statement. Real, unpolished. Sunny softens just a fraction. That frustration, she says, is what many women have lived with their entire lives. Channing nods slowly. I get that. I really do. But do you feel entitled to comfort in this moment? Sunny presses. That word, entitled, hits him harder than the others. I don't feel entitled, he says, his voice rising despite himself. I feel exhausted. The audience reacts immediately. A mix of empathy and discomfort. Exhausted from what? Sunny asks. From walking on eggshells, Channing replies. From being told silence is complicity, but speaking is violence. A sharp intake of breath echoes through the studio. That line lands heavy. Sunny's expression tightens. Words matter, she says. And calling speech violence when people are talking about harm isn't the same thing. Channing shakes his head slightly. But that's how it feels. Sunny pauses, then asks quietly, feelings versus facts? The challenge is unmistakable. Channing leans forward, forearms on the table now. This feels less like a conversation, and more like I'm being boxed in. Sunny meets his gaze. Sometimes being boxed in forces reflection. The audience claps, short, sharp bursts. Channing sits back, eyes flashing. Or resentment. The word hangs in the air. Whoopi raises an eyebrow. Careful, she murmurs. Sunny doesn't flinch. Resentment toward whom? Channing exhales sharply. Toward a culture that doesn't allow nuance. Sunny counters instantly. Or toward losing unchecked power. That's it. The studio reacts all at once. Gasps, murmurs, applause colliding into noise. Producers exchange looks. This is no longer controlled tension. This is collision. Channing's face flushes. I don't have unchecked power, he says. I'm an actor. Sunny responds calmly. You're a platform. I didn't ask for this role, Channing snaps, then immediately tightens his jaw, realizing how it sounded. Sunny raises an eyebrow. But you benefit from it. Silence again. Thick and suffocating. Channing looks away, shaking his head slightly. This is exactly what I mean, he says. Anything I say gets reframed. Sunny leans in. That's dialogue. No, he replies, voice sharp now. That's defense masquerading as discussion. The audience reacts strongly, boos mixed with applause. Whoopi steps in, voice firmer now. Okay. Let's bring it down a notch. But Sunny isn't finished. Channing, she says, do you believe women when they say they're harmed by certain behaviors? Yes, he answers immediately. Then why resist the language that names that harm? She asks. Channing opens his mouth, then closes it. He rubs his face again, visibly struggling. Because sometimes, he says slowly, it feels like language is being used as a weapon. Sunny's tone sharpens. For some people, it's the only weapon they've ever had. That line lands like thunder. Channing looks stunned, not angry, stunned. He blinks a few times. The audience goes quiet, sensing the shift. I didn't come here to invalidate anyone, he says quietly. Sunny nods. I believe that. The tension eases, just slightly. But the damage is already done. Channing straightens, regaining composure. But I won't apologize for expressing how this feels from my side. Sunny holds his gaze. And I won't stop challenging narratives that center discomfort over justice. They sit there, facing each other across the table, two worlds colliding in real time. The applause that follows is hesitant, uneven. The camera cuts briefly to the audience, faces divided, conflicted, energized. When it cuts back, Channing's expression is guarded now. Whatever openness existed earlier has closed. And everyone in that studio knows it. Because this conversation isn't ending here. It's just getting sharper. The applause fades unevenly, like rain stopping in patches. Channing sits back, shoulders squared now, posture locked in place. Whatever vulnerability slipped out earlier has been pulled back behind a wall. You can see it in his eyes, alert, guarded, measuring every word before it escapes. Sunny notices the shift immediately. She's been watching people long enough to recognize when someone decides to stop giving ground. You look like you're bracing, she says, not accusing, just observant. Channing lets out a breath that sounds more like a scoff than a sigh. I am, he admits, because this stopped feeling like curiosity a while ago. Sunny doesn't flinch. Sometimes curiosity feels uncomfortable when it hits a nerve. That's convenient, Channing replies. The edge in his voice is unmistakable now. The audience reacts, low murmurs, a few sharp exhales. This is no longer tense politeness. This is friction. Joy tries again to redirect. Channing, maybe let's talk about. But Sunny raises a hand gently, not to silence Joy, but to signal she's not done yet. One more thing, she says. Channing's lips press together. He nods once. Okay. Sunny leans forward, elbows resting lightly on the table. You said earlier you feel like men are assumed guilty before the conversation starts. Yes, Channing replies instantly. Do you understand why? Sunny asks. For many women, that assumption came after decades of being disbelieved? Channing shifts. His jaw tightens. I understand the history, he says. What I'm questioning is whether reacting with suspicion forever actually fixes it. Sunny's eyes narrow slightly, not in anger but focus. So you think suspicion has an expiration date? I think progress does, Channing says. Or at least it should. A beat. Then Sunny responds, calm but sharp. Progress isn't measured by comfort. The audience applauds louder this time. Channing glances briefly toward the crowd, then back at Sunny. Something in him hardens. And I don't think, he says slowly, that discomfort automatically equals wrongdoing. Sunny nods. Agreed. Channing blinks, surprised. Then why does it feel like I'm being treated as if it does? Sunny tilts her head. Because you're used to being affirmed. That lands harder than any accusation. Channing's eyes widen slightly. He laughs once, incredulous. So now affirmation is a crime? No, Sunny replies. But expecting it is a privilege. The audience gasps softly. Someone claps. Someone else shakes their head. Channing's tone sharpens. You're making assumptions about me. Sunny doesn't back down. I'm responding to what you're expressing. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Channing says, voice rising. I say I feel attacked, and suddenly that becomes proof of guilt. Sunny's voice drops, deliberate. Or proof of defensiveness. There it is again. That word. Channing leans forward abruptly, palms flat on the table. The movement is sudden enough to make a few people in the audience flinch. I'm defending myself, he says, because I feel like I'm being framed as the problem instead of part of a larger conversation. Sunny holds his gaze. Power doesn't exempt anyone from being part of the problem. I didn't say it did, Channing snaps. But you keep centering how this feels to you, Sunny counters. Not what it means for those without your platform. The studio hums with energy now. This is live television, unfiltered, and it's slipping out of the neat box everyone expected. Channing exhales hard, shaking his head. You keep talking about platform like it's a weapon I'm choosing to use. Sunny responds immediately. Influence is never neutral. So what's the expectation? Channing asks, frustration spilling over. That I only speak when I agree with everything? No, Sunny says. That you listen longer than you speak. A few people in the audience clap enthusiastically. Channing looks out at them again, jaw clenched. I've been listening my whole life. Sunny's reply is swift and surgical. Listening from the center. The room goes quiet. Channing's mouth opens, then closes. He sits back slowly, crossing his arms, not casually but protectively. His eyes drop for a moment, then lift again, sharper now. You know, he says, voice lower, controlled. This feels less like dialogue and more like correction. Sunny nods. Because sometimes people need correcting. The audience erupts, applause, gasps, even a few cheers. Whoopi steps in firmly now. Okay, we're getting real heated, she says. Let's take a second. But Channing isn't done. No, he says, shaking his head. Let's not pretend this isn't what it is. Sunny turns fully toward him. And what is it? Channing looks directly at her. It feels like there's no space left for men to express confusion without being labeled resistant. Sunny responds calmly. Confusion is valid. Resistance is when confusion becomes refusal. Channing's eyes flash. And who decides the difference? The people harmed, Sunny says. That answer hits him like a wall. Channing sits there, breathing steadily, visibly restraining himself. The audience watches, transfixed. This is not a man shouting. This is a man holding anger in a tight fist. I think, he says slowly, There's a danger in assuming intent based solely on identity. Sunny doesn't disagree outright. And there's danger in ignoring patterns because intent feels good. The exchange has become philosophical now. Ideology versus experience, theory versus lived reality. Channing shakes his head. You're asking for perfection. No, Sunny replies. We're asking for accountability without defensiveness. He laughs again, humorless. That's a contradiction. Sunny's eyes soften just a fraction. Only if you see accountability as punishment. The moment hangs. This is the closest they've come to understanding, and yet they're still miles apart. Channing lowers his arms, hands resting on his knees. I'm not perfect, he says. I never claimed to be. Sunny nods. Then sit with the discomfort instead of fighting it. He looks at her, something raw flickering behind his eyes. It's hard not to fight when you feel accused. Sunny replies quietly. It's hard not to accuse when you've never been protected. The audience is silent now. No applause. No murmurs. Just listening. Channing swallows. For a moment, it looks like he might say something different. Something softer. But then the wall goes back up. I respect your perspective, he says, tone cool now. But I don't agree with how this conversation is framed. Sunny inclines her head slightly. Disagreement is allowed. Is it? Channing asks. Sunny meets his gaze without blinking. Yes. Defensiveness is what's being questioned. That's the line that seals it. Channing nods once, sharply. Then I think we're done here. A collective gasp moves through the studio. Whoopi's eyes widen. Well, Whoopi says quickly, we're not done, but... Channing forces a tight smile. I think I've said all I can without being misunderstood further. Sunny watches him carefully. Sometimes stepping back feels safer than staying present. He doesn't respond. The energy in the room is electric, volatile. Viewers at home can feel it through their screens. Because whatever this started as, it's no longer just an interview. It's a standoff. And the fallout hasn't even begun. The standoff lingers like smoke after a firework, thick, stinging, impossible to ignore. Channing sits motionless, hands folded now, jaw set. The defensive armor is fully in place. Across the table, Sunny Hostin remains composed, but her expression carries the weight of everything unsaid. This is no longer about winning an argument. It's about what just happened in front of millions of eyes. Whoopi breaks the silence with a nervous laugh that doesn't quite land. Well, she says, clapping her hands together once, this is why we have these conversations. The audience responds with a fractured mix of applause and uneasy murmurs. Some people lean forward in their seats. Others cross their arms. Everyone knows they just witnessed something that won't stay inside the studio. Channing nods politely, the kind of nod reserved for endings. I appreciate the space, he says, voice flat. Even if we don't agree. Sunny meets his gaze. Disagreement isn't failure, she says. Avoidance is. He holds her eyes for a beat longer than necessary, then looks away. The cameras catch it, the final withdrawal. The segment limps toward its close. Promotional chatter. A forced smile. A commercial tease. But the damage is done. The audience applauds again when Channing stands, louder this time, as if unsure whether they're applauding the guest, the confrontation, or simply the release of tension. As he exits the stage, Channing doesn't wave the way he did when he entered. His shoulders are tight, his expression closed. Backstage, producers exchange glances. One of them already has a phone out. Because outside the studio, the reaction is exploding. Within minutes of the show airing, clips flood social media. The moment Channing said, walking on eggshells. The moment Sunny said, listening from the center. The moment he leaned forward, palms on the table. The freeze-frame thumbnails write themselves. Twitter fractures instantly. Finally, a man saying what everyone's afraid to admit. Sunny Hostin just dismantled him in real time. That wasn't a conversation. That was a public reckoning. Why do men always get defensive when asked to listen? The hashtags multiply. His name trends. Her name trends. The view trends. Think pieces begin forming before the episode even ends. Entertainment blogs frame it as a clash. Cultural commentators call it a mirror. Fans pick sides like it's a championship match. Slow-motion breakdowns analyze his body language. Her tone. Who interrupted whom? Who crossed a line first? By nightfall, headlines scream about a defensive turn. About controlled anger on live TV. About a moment that exposed the fault lines of modern masculinity. Channing's team releases a statement the next morning. Measured, careful. Channing values open dialogue and respects differing perspectives. Nothing inflammatory. Nothing clarifying. Silence dressed as professionalism. Sunny, meanwhile, addresses it directly. On air. Calm. Unshaken. Discomfort, she says, is often the price of growth. The audience applauds. And viewers keep watching. Because what makes moments like this unforgettable isn't who spoke louder or who won the exchange. It's that split second when a public mask slips. When charm meets challenge. When conversation turns into confrontation. And everyone at home recognizes themselves somewhere in the tension. Some see a man pushed too far. Others see accountability finally knocking. And that divide, that's the real aftermath. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Was Channing unfairly cornered, or did the questions expose something deeper? Did Sunny push too hard, or did she say what needed to be said? Drop your opinion in the comments below. And if you want more explosive, cinematic breakdowns of the moments celebrities never expected to face on live television, make sure you subscribe to Stage View. Because the next confrontation is always closer than it looks.